Welcome home, spiritual human. I'm your host, Stacee McGee, and you are listening to the Fluent Podcast, a gathering place for spiritual humans where each week we talk about becoming fluent in all things spiritual. Welcome back, spiritual humans. So the last episode, I talked about my experience with my son, and I also mentioned that there was a podcast episode that went unpublished after that experience. And so this is that podcast episode. And I feel like this knowledge and this information was so valuable for me to have with that experience with my son. And I hope that you find this helpful for you and your journey as well. And so take a listen to this secret, unheard podcast episode that's been sitting in my files waiting for the day that I would share it with you. Welcome back, spiritual humans. I'm your host, Stacee McGee. Today we're going to talk about a video that I got on TikTok that is, I would say it's going viral. We're currently, as we speak, at 936,400 some odd views. That's a lot of views. And if you haven't seen the video, you can go head over there. And the question that was asked is, could anyone that's not afraid of death talk to me about why? So I actually saw the original video that I stitched on this video as I was basically doom scrolling before I went to bed. And I remember getting up and like sort of getting dressed and making this really, really fast video, just responding, because I was like, I have to tell you, like, you don't need to be afraid. I've been there. I've experienced a near-death experience. And it wasn't all bad. I mean, it actually didn't hurt too much. And the one thing I wanted to do was to make sure that people didn't fear death. But in part of making that video, it had a little bit of an unintended consequence where there were several commentaries like, okay, good, maybe I should end it now. Oh, well, glad to know it doesn't hurt. Maybe I'll peace out early. And those type of comments. And I was just like, whoa, wait, no, that's not the intention. Like, that's not what I want you guys to know. I just want you to know that the actual process of separation doesn't hurt. And it sparked religious conversations and arguments in the commentary. And so I'm going to use this podcast episode to clarify it, to clarify what I see as someone who has the ability to see the other side, what I see on the other side, what I see happening after we die. But I'm also going to talk about what happens before we come here so that we have a full understanding and a full context of what goes on. Now, I will say, for some of you that are deconstructing religion, there are still pieces to this explanation that will feel religious. And that's fine, because there are some truths in religion, right? There's also some things that religion misses, because to me, religion is a tool of understanding where we come from, the spiritual world, but it is an understanding from a perspective of a human telling that story. And so when we look at the religious text, they are humans writing down what they have seen or been told to write down, and some things are missed. So I am going to talk about all of that. So let's get into this. And from my personal journal is where we're going to start, because a while ago I had this question, and I was praying and meditating, like on our existence. Like, what is the truth? Is it like what my parents said and the stork dropped me off at the front door? Is it what church says? Is it something else? And this is the answer that I was given. And I'm just going to read it, and we're going to go from there. And so this is notes from my personal spiritual journal. When we choose our existence, we are all family, and we love each other greatly before we come to this earth. We choose our path, our plan, our parents, our family, our existence. With these choices, we are allowed to pick our personality traits, character traits, flaws, life lessons, etc. This is why astrology is important, because you must be born on the exact perfect time to incarnate as you are to learn your life lessons. We are taken to a great hall to watch our perspective lives. There are many to choose from. We are able to spin the dial of choice and chance in life to obtain the perfect mix of who we are and what we are to be. Now, I'm going to pause because there's actually a drawing here, and I drew what I saw in this vision. And what it looked like was kind of a little hazy, but it was me, and I was standing at this great circular table. And the same table had hundreds of golden brass or gold, I'm not sure, concentric circles. And they were like dials. And I could spin each circle and dial, kind of dialing in my life. And I would watch it on the screen in front of me. I don't know. It was just really interesting. But I would dial that in, and I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I want. And so what I wrote, the notes around this drawing, spinning the dial, um, chooses prospective lives and outcome. There are also 3 witnesses present. These 3 witnesses, I wrote, witnesses are always required to watch the choices. And these witnesses are friends, family members, or guardian angels. But to me, what Spirit told me is that one was someone that was like a friend, someone I was very close with. One was like a family member. Um, and it felt like it was going to be the person who was also going to incarnate with me on my family lines. And then the third person was almost like an authority, where they were like, okay, I'm just going to kind of sign, seal, and deliver your choices. And so it showed me making these choices. And this authority figure that I saw was someone who sat on the council. And what was interesting is that I was told that we all sit on the council, and we all have these discussions. So it's a very kind of collaborative environment where it's not one person being the authority over the other, but that we're all kind of supportive of each other. But suffice to say, these downloads showed me that the choice to be here um, was fully made by myself, that there was agency involved. And, I know a lot of us are kind of like, what? No, there's no way I chose this life. There's no way I chose whatever happened. This is really hard. The universe is really fucked up to do that. I get where you're coming from. Believe me, like, why would we choose such a fucked up existence? And I'm going to continue reading because I think this gives us some clues, some understanding. So some of this is also personal to me. So you're going to kind of have to use your imagination for yourself. You, Stacee, chose to be kind, but you didn't want to be a pushover. You wanted to be a warrior, but not to hurt people, but to help fight for what is right. And I'll just interject here. I think that's where my Scorpio rising came in, because I'm like all Pisces everywhere else. So I'll continue. Because the path you chose was difficult, very difficult, you were given many gifts to help you overcome the odds and potential obstacles. Not everyone is given such gifts. With great risk comes great rewards, and your rewards are many and diverse. Use them wisely. And so there was this understanding that we were given gifts, and we were given the ability to utilize or to ignore our spiritual gifts. And and before you say, oh no, I don't have any gifts, everybody has spiritual gifts. Sometimes your gifts are more apparent, like the gift of being artistic. And sometimes they're more subtle, like being able to easily make friends or to be comforting to someone. Now, here's some further downloads that I got down the road, because I was like, now hold on here. It doesn't seem like all of us are actually here to learn lessons. And that kind of sat a little uncomfortable with me. And so I was like, Spirit, are you sure that like all of us are here to learn lessons? Because it seems like there's more to this picture. And Spirit was like, yeah, there is more. And so further downloads, I'm going to read these. Not everyone came to learn lessons. Some came to teach them. Some to help others grow. Some came to watch and observe. Some came to heal. Others to create chaos. And that was like, whoa, others to create chaos. And then I started thinking about my life, and I was like, oh, I actually have been a chaos causer in other people's lives. And this dichotomy of being spiritual but also a chaos causer was like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. And it's just, it was a very kind of thought-provoking thought that, oh, wait, we're like, some of us actually have other things we're doing, and sometimes we're doing multiple things. And that was, I think, a really powerful understanding to me. So we kind of have this answer that I got from the downloads of what is going on and why. And that really helped. And I ended up asking for further clarification on my purpose. And my purpose is really about restoring lost knowledge, restoring peace, happiness, healing to people. And so I hope that bringing my spiritual downloads can help people understand themselves and who they are, and to help them align with their purpose by bringing forward wisdom that's been lost and true knowledge. And one of the things that I got from another download, and this will kind of segue into the religious topic, is that I wrote, the truth was scattered all over the world. Like the Tower of Babel, no one has complete wisdom. The only way to have complete wisdom is to gather it all together. We are all one language, one understanding. And so Spirit was like, hey, you guys need to come together. And I see right now there's this great separation of cultures and religions. And I've been curiously looking at older cultures and this society that has swept over all spiritually based cultures throughout time and systematically destroyed their knowledge, truths, and traditions. And it's happened over many cultures. It's, most recent memory is with the First Nations people, but it happened with the African Americans and the Irish and the Scottish, and you just keep following it over culture on culture. Every culture has a story of where their spiritual people were basically told they could not practice their religion. They were systematically destroyed, and it was very interesting to me. So I moved to another So I moved to another experience. Um, this one actually had a date and time. Oh, okay. So I moved to another experience, and this one actually had a date and time. 6/11/2022 at 6:30 p.m. Now, I actually distinctly remember this experience because my uh, partner was practicing acupuncture techniques on me. And he had put an acupuncture needle in my third eye. And I remember jokingly posting a picture on social media. I was like, haha, do you think this is going to open my third eye? And then my husband's like, put your phone down and just sit and meditate. And I had a very profound, powerful vision during this process. And this is what I wrote and journaled about this experience. I had a vision of Christ today during acupuncture. I saw a figure come out of purple light, an outline, but I knew it was Christ. He kept showing me his hands repeatedly, first the palms, and then the left hand sweeping over the right. And I will pause by saying, I now see this symbolizing the spiritual hand coming over the physical world. So it is showing putting spiritual before physical. I then asked, is he sad that he died for people that didn't love or care for him? And he said no. He was sad that they forgot him, that he could heal them. But he was mostly concerned about those that said they knew him, but that they did not act as he would act, essentially. So the feeling that I got from this was that he was like, it's okay if people don't believe me, that's fine. But the people who claim to believe and know me and act in my name that are not doing that the way that I taught, that's like the problem. And then he kept repeating, share my message, share my message. Now, this is the part where it gets really interesting, guys. And if you're a Christian, I apologize in advance. I'm going to shake your world here. Christ then told me he came with 4 brothers, that it was their job to teach the people of the world love and kindness and truth and understanding, that they each taught the people according to their needs. They taught the same thing in different ways that people needed to hear. And then my commentary was, I wonder who the 4 brothers are. I think Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, maybe. I didn't get a clear answer on this. But I think as I further meditate, I did come to an understanding. And one of those understandings was actually through reading the Hopi prophecy. And in reading the Hopi prophecies and the creation stories of the Hopi and the Hopi nations, the one thing I noticed is I was like, wait, hold on. Their creation story is kind of identical to what's in the Bible, except for instead of calling like God Heavenly Father, they call him grandfather. Instead of referring to Christ as brother, they refer to him as uncle. And I was like, this is interesting. And so I think that that fourth person um, was someone maybe that came and taught First Nations people. I'm not sure. I'll let you guys speculate, I guess, on that. But this download, when we look at that viral video and the question about religion, where we have all these people fighting over, well, I believe in Christ, so I'm going to heaven guaranteed. Doesn't matter if I'm a good or bad person. And I'm like, yo, that's not the way it works, but okay. And other people are like, well, I'm Muslim. Does that mean I'm not going to heaven? And there was like all these great arguments. And I was like, y'all, you're missing the forest of the trees here. Your religion does not mean, it doesn't matter. Your religion doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you're going to heaven or you're not. And that, I don't know that people understood that. Your religion is something that helps you understand God, that helps you become a better person. But just belonging to a religion does not guarantee you that you're going to heaven, and one religion does not hold a, a higher status or, the monopoly on heaven. That's not the way it works, guys, right? And when we look at death, when we cross over, I mean, spoiler alert, y'all, for the most part, y'all are still here on the earth. Eh. Yeah. And okay, let's kind of clarify this because when we pass over, it's like stepping out of a car. You know, you still exist, you're just not in the car anymore, right? So you step out of your body. And depending on your life, will kind of depend on what happens after you die. But it's not like you're going to go either sit in the clouds and strum a harp or you're going to go sit in eternal damnation and sit in flames. It's not the way it works, right? So the way it works is if you've learned your life lessons and you've kind of done what you needed to do on this earth and you leave this earth without significant baggage, I guess is the best way to describe this, where you've forgiven, you've forgotten, you've released emotions, then you cross over and you become a guardian angel, a teacher, a guide. There are, there's a period of rest as well. I mean, it's not like you're just like, okay, here's another job, get to work. I mean, some people can decide to do that, but everybody gets a little bit of rest and restoration, of course. But there's things to do on the other side. Those that are on the other side can be busy, right? But if you've crossed over and you still need to learn things or you still need to heal things or maybe you left this earth intentionally, the results are not totally the same, right? Because the only things that you take with you are essentially who you are. You don't take your body, you don't take your money, you only take your memories, your life experiences, and things like that. And so if you missed the point of this existence, I guess is the best way to describe it. If you just kind of skated through life, didn't do what you were meant to do, if you left intentionally, then essentially you're now on the other side with life lessons to learn, with things to finish, unfinished business. A lot of people talk about ghosts with unfinished business. This is a great example. Um, and some people aren't ready to die. I remember I was in the hospital with my dad a few years back, and he was getting back surgery, and we were sitting in the waiting room waiting for him. And all of a sudden, I can hear ghosts. I'm not as much of a seer as I am a hearer, but I do see them in my mind's eye. And I hear this man, and there's this woman kind of just quietly sitting in a chair. And you could tell she was worried. And then a doctor kind of walked up to her. And as the doctor walked up to her, there was a spirit that came with him. And he was pissed. He was like screaming at his wife, "This doctor's incompetent, and rah, 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 he doesn't know what he's doing," and going off. And the doctor proceeded, I think, to tell this woman that this man had passed away because she got very sad quickly. And then he led her away somewhere else. And I obviously I didn't hear the conversation. I was across the room. But the whole time, this angry man ghost is yelling, "I'm not dead. This man's incompetent. Tell him to get back in that operating room and fix why he messed up." Okay. So he was just going off and following his wife. So he passed as a very angry person, right? Clearly, because he was kind of like a guy Karen. And didn't even realize that he crossed over. So he's now on the other side, pissed off. Now, some people can realize, oh, whoops, I'm dead. Oh, I got to shift, right? And usually when people cross over, they hang around the world, the earth for 3 to 5 days, sometimes up to a week. They hang out with their family. They usually attend their own funerals, which is really interesting. to go to funerals and see the people that have passed on there. That's an experience in its own. Um, but they hang out and chill, kind of like tying up the things. And so sometimes it's just that time where people are like, oh yeah, I'm dead. Oops, I gotta let this go. If they have unfinished business, if they need extra help with understanding or healing, then there's family that come always to pick up people. They're like, hey, I'm coming to pick you up. So sometimes they will refuse to go. I'm not going. I'm not dead. I'm not leaving. Sometimes they don't want to go with that person for whatever reason. Sometimes they fight it, and if they fight it, um, they get stuck. That's why we have ghosts. They stick around. Sometimes they forget, right? In the case of my grandmother, she had been in a mental institution for so long, she had kind of forgotten who her family was. And so when they came to get her, she was like, I didn't recognize them, so I didn't go with them. Right? So there's different reasons why ghosts hang around. But suffice to say, it's typically because there's something that they haven't processed yet or that they're not understanding. But they're not left completely alone. They're given opportunities. And that's the thing we have to remember. Everyone has agency. We all have agency in this world. And so that agency gives us choices over this life, as well as after we pass. We have choices of what we do. And so depending on those choices during and after life kind of depends on what happens, right? And so sometimes they're awesome things. Sometimes it's a little bit more school and lessons. And that is why, when people are like, well, I'm just going to leave early. I'm like, oh, please don't do that, because you're just making it harder on yourself. And it doesn't mean that you are not going to have to finish what you started here. It just means now you have to finish it without a body. And that makes it harder, right? Because you're now a soul without a body that is trying to learn things that should have been learned when you had a body. So I feel like I'm going to have to do a part 2 on this, guys, because there's so much to talk about. But the other side is insanely cool and beautiful. And hopefully you guys like this topic. And I guess I'll see how many of you listen to that and how much feedback I get on my website about that. But yeah, if you guys want to hear more about this, go to my website and give me some feedback. Let me know if you like these podcast episodes, because sometimes I just feel like I'm talking to myself. But either way, I enjoy it. And I hope that each and every one of you have a beautiful day, my spiritual humans. And we will talk again soon. Have a wonderful day. You've been listening to the Fluent Podcast. Your continued support means so much to me, and I just want you all to know how grateful that I am for you. I have many resources on my website, spiritfluent.com, as well as on my YouTube at spiritfluent. And I would love to invite you to check out my book, My Spiritual Awakening is a Shit Show, on Amazon now.